Okay, this is a 1970 Volkswagen Beetle California look project. Although it could go any way you wanted, everything's there to put it back stock if you wanted to do that. So I'll walk around the car and kind of tell you everything that is included with it because there's a bunch of extras. So the car's in really good shape for being a 70 model. There's really none of the typical rust areas on these cars. There's really nothing that I found that's rusting through, so it's in really good shape. I can't tell that there's a lot of Bondo anywhere or anything like that, so it appears to be a really straight car. I've already gone through and rebuilt the chassis, and so that's all nice and shiny and clean. I'll take these fenders off here in a minute and do a shot of the front and rear suspension, but everything's been rebuilt and that's ready to go. I've got all the body panels on the car just so you can see what everything looks like. There are a couple of areas of bodywork that will need to be done, and I've got the parts to do that. So I've got a new old stock front apron here that's going to replace this one. You can see there's a little tear down there, so I've already drilled everything out. It just needs to be popped off and put back on. You probably also noticed that the dash has been cut from this car, but if you look around, there's plenty of margin left to graft something back in. And so my thought process there is to backdate it to an early Beetle dash. And so I've got a good condition, early 60s dash with plenty of margin on it to be able to get it grafted in. And none of the metal is, I mean, there's some surface rust, but none of it's, beyond savings. This is in actually really good shape for what it is. So the idea is to graft that back in for the dash. You can see there's a new shifter in there. Ready to roll. You can see the new shocks sitting down in there that have been put on the car. There's new running boards that have still got the blue strip protective over the chrome. And then in the back, so this is the new old stock apron that I sourced. The original apron had been cut up for an aftermarket exhaust. I've already pulled it off. My idea here was to do a bolt-on apron so that you could take it off and get the engine out if needed to be. So that's there, ready to roll. There's some tin pieces that belong on the engine when it gets its final install, and then the rear deck lid here. I've also got the piece that goes here, and I've got the taillight buckets and everything else. These fenders have already been converted up front for cow look, so the blinkers have been shaved. They did a really good job with that. The fenders are actually in really clean shape. So here's a quick shot inside the backs of these fenders. As you can tell, there's where the front blinkers were filled. They're really clean, really straight. If you look at these flanges, these are usually all beat to shit, and they're just really clean. I mean, they'll need a little bit of cleaning up before they get a final coat of paint, but they're in great shape. Cowlook bumpers actually got the cutouts, and I've got these pieces as well, the lights to do that. You can see this side, it's been shaved as well, and like I said, they did a really good job with that. So the engine, here's the story with the engine. So it's a 1679. It's a stock Volkswagen 69mm crank, reground original German crankshaft, and then it's got 88mm, they call them thick head or hyperotic, I believe is the technical term, pistons and cylinders. So at the case register they're stock size, but at the head they're 90.5, so it's a thicker cylinder wall, so there's no overheating issues with running a bigger jug. So it's a 1679. The engine that I've rebuilt, it's got an Engel W100 cam and lifters. It's got brand new heads with slightly larger than stock valves that are stainless steel. I've got CB Performance valve covers down in there. Let's see what else. Lots of odds and ends. I can give specifics on what's here. It's a Weber Progressive 3236 carb that's been rejetted properly for this size engine. It's a flamethrower distributor with digital points. Let's see. So the story with the engine is that I've started it once or a couple times to make sure that I was building oil pressure, and also to get it ready for break-in. When I started it the second time, I heard a noise that kind of sounds typically like, I don't know if you've ever heard what it sounds like when this sheet metal rubs on the pulley, but it sounded like that, and so I stopped, and unfortunately the car sat in storage ever since then, and I haven't had a chance to troubleshoot. I'm thinking it may either be a shimming issue with this pulley, that it's not shimmed properly, or there's a rebuilt transmission under here too, so maybe the throwout bearing isn't on there properly, or something's rubbing there, or maybe even the transmission itself, because it's brand new, it's got a little bit of whine or something. I definitely can provide video footage of that. So the engine will need a little TLC, but I don't suspect any big major issues there. You can see, I mean, there's no in play, well, the proper in play. There's no detectable in play. Everything's set correctly. It's a fresh rebuild, and it turns over freely by hand. So no issues there. Again, there's that apron, original German steel apron. And here's some of the extra parts that I've got that come with the car. I've got just absolutely buckets and buckets of parts. You know, like the parts that go into the rear seat, interior parts, steering wheel, rear view mirror, bucket full of tin, another bucket full of miscellaneous engine bits, more miscellaneous engine bits. I've got the doors that came off the car that are the one-piece window, and they've got the glass in them. And then I've got one of the original factory style doors. I've got the glass, the rear's on top, the windshield's below. And I've got a set of magnesium wheels there too. The buried down under either here in this bucket, or actually they're in here, are the wing vents. So they're there, tail lights. I mean, there's just absolutely everything. It's just all boxed away. I mean, there's a glove box. It's all here. It's just all in boxes. So here's looking back up front at the one that we can see. Rebuilt suspension. I mean, everything's painted and clean and new. The tubes got cleaned out, re-greased, new seals, upper and lower. I'm kind of seeing there that they're CB drop spindles, so it's for a little bit of a drop with a disc brake conversion kit up front. So there's the brand new caliper back there, new shocks. I mean, everything is fresh and primo. And the camber adjusters are back right in there too, so that it has the correct ride. And here's the driver's side. Steering has been, so if we can get a better shot, steering's been rebuilt, and there's a new master cylinder. Brake lines are run. I mean, everything is looking good. Here's down inside the front trunk. These are the rear shocks that just aren't installed yet, but brand new. So here's inside the front trunk. Like I said, really clean. Gas tank is in great shape. Here's kind of why I was cutting out. I've already made the cut, why I'm replacing that. You can see that rust hole right there, or it looks like they bottomed out, honestly, on something. So that's why this is going to be replaced with this brand new piece right here. I mean, everything's in great shape. Let's see. Here's looking down inside to where everything's been rebuilt. New steering stabilizer, brake lines, master cylinder. There's a speedometer cable that's installed and ready to roll. Rebuilt steering box, like I said. I mean, everything's ready to roll on this thing. Here's kind of the back side of the dash. So you can see that plenty of material left to graft in an early style dash. And then here we'll look around back. So the wheels that are on the car right now, these are 914 steel wheels. So they've got a little different offset than the factory. I think they actually look pretty good. But just so you know what's on the car. So here's looking down into the rear suspension that's been rebuilt. Everything's been repainted. New bushings, inner and outer. New hardware where necessary. I don't have the bump stops on yet, but I do have new bump stops. All of this inside here, the bearing carrier, new bearings, has been rebuilt, new seals, re-greased, everything's good to go there. And just kind of looking around, so there's the rebuilt transmission from the Bug Stop in Arlington, Texas. There's kind of looking up to the rest of the chassis. Everything was completely disassembled, cleaned, repainted. There's an electric fuel pump sitting down there for the motor. So everything was done the way it should be. I've got another project that's eating up my time, and I'd really like to see this get finished and go to somebody who will give it lots of love and attention and do it right. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to answer.